Hi, right now we are going to learn about trapezoids. Let's begin with the definition. The definition of a trapezoid is that it is a quadrilateral with one pair of parallel sides. Here is your one pair of parallel sides. The other pair is not parallel. If they were, that would turn it into a parallelogram, and a trapezoid is not a parallelogram, not a part of that parallelogram family at all. Completely different. We do have only one pair of parallel sides. So with that, not a whole lot of stuff we can do, but let's take a look at some of these examples. So let's move on to number one. So here's number one right here. And if we have a trapezoid, I know it's a trapezoid, we've marked it as a trapezoid, we want to find the measure of angle 1. So here's 80 degrees down here. These two sides are parallel, and when that happens, these two angles on either of the parallel lines with this one transversal, these guys here are supplementary. Okay, kind of like consecutive interior angles, that's actually what they are. Remember your consecutive interior angles? All the stuff that you learned way back in the beginning of the year kind of doesn't go away. So here are your parallel sides. Those are your two parallel lines. Here, cut by a transversal. If you remember your parallel lines, cut by a transversal. Here they are. And then we had this C shape right here in the middle. And these two guys here, we called them, these inside guys, consecutive interior angles. And their relationship was that they were supplementary. Well, here we still have, even though we don't have all the lines, we do have the trapezoid and the parallel side. So yeah, these guys are supplementary. So angle 1, 100 degrees. Same thing over on this side. I'm not going to draw it all in, but these guys here, one on each of these parallel sides, they are also supplementary. If that is 60, this guy here is 120. Add to 180. Moving over to number 2. So over here at number 2, this is 90, that guy up there. Also 90. If that guy is 110, this guy down here, 70 degrees. And done. That's pretty much all we can do with trapezoids, is just know that these two guys here, supplementary. Well, let's move on. I'm going to zoom out. So here we have the midsegment of a trapezoid. Let's figure out what a midsegment is. So the definition says that it is the segment joining the midpoints of the legs. Well, let's put that over here. So we have the legs. We didn't write that up here. Let's go back up here and let's talk about the different parts of a trapezoid. I probably should have done that before and I forgot. So we have the two parallel sides of the trapezoid, and I'm going to call those two parallel sides the bases. The bases are the parallel sides, and these other two sides are called the legs. This one and that one. Those guys there are the legs. So then when I come down here and I talk about a midsegment, okay, so now we know what the legs are. The legs are these two pieces here. So I just basically drew this picture. Let's make sure that we know that it is a trapezoid. We have one pair of parallel sides. These two here are the legs. They say we have to have a midpoint. There's your midpoints. To show that this is a midpoint, I am going to mark these two sides congruent to each other. To show this is the midpoint of this leg, I'm going to mark these two pieces congruent to each other. They're not all congruent to each other because it doesn't tell me anything about the two legs being the same, only that this is a midpoint of this side and this is a midpoint cutting this side in half. All right, so there's a picture. Now what we need is a segment. So we got to draw that segment across. That is the midsegment. Let's make him a little darker so you can actually see it. Okay, so there is your midsegment. Your midsegment has a couple of properties. So one of those properties is that line that we just drew, it is actually a third parallel line. So it is parallel. So properties of a midsegment. Okay, so it also is a third parallel line. It is parallel to the bases. A second thing that we can figure out about it is, well, we can kind of talk about its length. Let's say, for pretend, that this piece up here is 10, and let's say that this base down here is 30. So if this is 10 and this is 30, and we know that this segment is exactly in the middle, well, we would want to know what is exactly in the middle of 10 and 30. And a lot of us are already thinking 20. And yeah, that is exactly what's in the middle of 30. So if you have two numbers and you want to know what the exact middle is, then mathematically what you're doing is you're finding the average. We're doing 10 plus 30 divided by 2, and 40 divided by 2 is 20. Okay, did you actually find the average, or you just knew what was exactly in the middle? Either way, when you want to know what's exactly in the middle of two numbers, you are finding the average. So instead of using real numbers, because when we make formulas, we have to use variables, we're going to use base 1 and base 2. So base 1 plus base 2, and that's what we did here, divided by 2, so the average of the bases, that is equal to the length of the midsegment. Base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 is the length of the midsegment. Let's do 3 quick examples to find the length of the midsegment, or one of the bases. Here's example 1. Oh, by the way, I did say that they are all trapezoids, so even though I didn't mark them with parallel lines, I kind of did that on purpose just so there is less clutter in the picture. I am telling you that they are all trapezoids. Okay, and I did mark showing you that we do have a midsegment, so that much is given to you. So we are going to do 12 plus 16 divided by 2, and that is equal to x. Add these guys. Divide by 2 equals x. So that's going to be 28 divided by 2, 14 equals x. Some of you were thinking, I already know what number's in between 12 and 16. If you got 14, good for you. That's the answer. So moving on to number 2. Add your bases. Divide by 2, and it's equal to 17. So 5 plus x divided by 2 is equal to 17. So this time, we're not finding the midsegment. They gave it to me, so that's why my midsegment's not the x. So now I have to solve this. Easiest way to solve a problem like this, in my opinion, is to turn it into a proportion. Now we can cross multiply. And this is going to be 5 plus x is equal to 34. Subtract 5 from both sides, and x is equal to 29. Some of you may have already had 29 because you're making some connections, and that is a great way to do this also. Some of you might be thinking, well, to get from 5 to 17, they're 12 apart. So that must mean that there's 12 units, and I don't mean that the height is 12. I mean that 5 plus another 12 gives you 17, then plus another 12 is going to give you this, and 17 and 12 is equal to 29. And yes, it's an excellent way to do it. I love making associations, just like if you got this one because you kind of knew right in the middle of 16 was 14, excellent way to do that one also. But we do need formulas because we will have problems like number 3, and number 3 is difficult to guess and check with, so we are going to write an equation here. So we are going to write the equation so that base plus base divided by 2 is equal to your midsegment. So it's going to be x plus 10 plus 5x plus 6 all divided by 2 is equal to your midsegment, which is 4x plus 4. Turn it into a proportion. In my opinion, that may be the easiest way to solve this. So we can cross multiply. So this way, maybe I'll do it this way first. I gotta combine like terms. That's 6x plus 16 times 1 is equal to 8x. Distribute, distribute, remember both of them, plus 8. And then we can I'll minus 6x over here. That way my variable stays positive. Can you see? I think you can. And that's going to be 2x. I'm going to subtract 8. And 8 is equal to 2x divided by 2. X is equal to 4. Where can I put this? I'm going to do it over here. X equals 4. So if they're asking for x, that was the directions in the beginning of this section. Now you have the answer. Sometimes they want you to take this number and plug it back in. Totally fine. You can do that if you want to. That would make this guy up here 14. Plug 4 in here, and that's going to be 26. If you want to know what number is exactly in the middle of 14 and 26, well, plus 6 minus 6, this guy here had better be 20. If we plug in 4, 16 plus 4 is 20. So there's lots of ways that you can kind of make sure you got the right answer there. I think you guys did great. Hopefully that was helpful.